Hi everyone, welcome to this channel. So this is a new channel that's going to be about philosophy. I'm going to try to make this not about the kind of really abstract philosophy that you generally hear, but I'm going to try to make this about applying philosophy to the real world and having it solve real questions, like real moral questions, maybe arguments, maybe political arguments, anything like this. Also, I want to try to make philosophy accessible to the average person. Because if you ever try to read a philosophy book, it's very difficult. It's written in very advanced language, which is pretty hard for the average person to understand. Like if you try to read Hegel or Kant or something like this, not exactly simple. Most people need a guide just to even understand what he's saying, because they don't say it in simple language. So I'll try to make philosophy as accessible as possible to the average person. So first of all, what is philosophy? So philosophy comes from philos, meaning love, and sophia, meaning wisdom. So it's literally the love of wisdom. But it's not just about loving wisdom. Philosophy is the study of fundamental questions, like what is real? How do we know things? What's right and wrong? How should we live? It covers areas like ethics, logic, metaphysics, the study of reality, epistemology, the study of knowledge, aesthetics, the study of beauty, and political philosophy. So how is philosophy different from science? Well, they're very similar in some ways, but also very different in other ways. For example, science came out of philosophy, and they were also considered the same thing, or connected directly. Hundreds of years ago, it was only around the Enlightenment time that it branched off into its own separate thing. But the main principles of philosophy and science are similar. It's based on, I don't know, let's look at reason and evidence. How science differs is that it's based around explaining the world around us only. It's only about objective facts, nothing else. So it's about medicine, biology, physics, chemistry, whereas philosophy will explain how do we know things, what is love, what is right and wrong. So they're similar in methodology but different in scope and purpose. So here's just a thought experiment just to show you how philosophy works. So imagine someone makes the claim, nothing is true. So the first logical law in philosophy is the law of identity, which I'll go through in future videos. But what this basically means is we need to know what things mean and know what things are. So we have to define the word true in this situation. I'll simply define this as something is scientifically correct or provable, or it's mathematically correct, or it makes sense logically. That's what we're going to define as true. So a key principle of philosophy is that all objective claims need to be internally consistent and have no contradictions, and need to be universal, and all exceptions or contradictions need to be explained, have a reasonable justification. So the main problem with this claim, if we expand it, is we're literally saying it is objectively true that nothing is true. The problem here is that if the statement itself is true, then at least one thing is true. This violates the law of non-contradiction, which is the second law of logic, so it can't be valid. Something can't be true and false at the same time. So that was just a simple example of how philosophy works. It's about objectively identifying claims, trying to find contradictions, defining terms, doing thought experiments as well. And that's generally how philosophy works. But that's all for this introductory video. See you guys next time.